Welcome back to the Film Feeder podcast. I'm Jack Martin.
And I'm Joe Warne.
And today we are going to be talking about something very interesting because it is April and there are a couple of musically inclined films coming out.
Yes, that's right. What we're doing is essentially a battle of the bands, or music biopics in this case.
Yes, because first of all, we have California Schemin, which is the directorial debut of James McAvoy. And later on in the month, we have quite possibly the biggest of the bunch. It is Michael, which is obviously the biopic of a certain Michael Jackson.
Yes, that's right. So two very different films coming out in, I think, what's proven to be quite a good time for music biopics. As a couple years ago, we had the Amy Winehouse one, Back to Black, release around middle of April.
And we also had the Bob Marley One Love come out just before that in February. So
Mm,
it seems to be like the first half of the year is probably prime time for all these big prestige music biopics.
mm.
But today we are just going to be taking a look at just the basic things that surround a lot of music biopics because a lot of them tend to falter, whereas very few others actually succeed, and we'll be
Mm.
discussing those today. But in terms of like Michael, for instance, which I like to call Bohemian Rhapsody, is it's going to be interesting because I mean the Michael Jackson. I mean, it's obvious that even in death, Michael Jackson is still as big as ever, if not even more so, because so many people tend to exploit his image even in death, which is pretty grim now you think about it. But this is obviously the first major movie to be sanctioned by the Jackson estate and is obviously been officially approved. And that's got some people concerned because when the people closest to the actual person have like mostly creative rights to the movie, then things are most likely going to get rather sanitized, shall we say. I mean, again, we've seen this. I mean, the most obvious example is Bohemian Rhapsody, which was officially sanctioned by the remaining members of Queen, and that became the divisive movie that it is. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that Michael is in danger of meeting the same fate?
Well, I think before we discuss any of that, I think it's very certain that Michael, it's going to be a hit, regardless of any of the controversy that surrounds Jackson, his image, because of just how many people still have such a fond memory of him and his music over the last few decades. But I think in terms of the film itself, I think, yeah, the fact that it is very much from the same creative team as Bohemian Rhapsody, with John Logan as screenwriter, writer, Graham King producing. Yeah, I feel like that is very much my cause for concern going into it. And again, with the estate playing such a key role in its development, there is the worry that it may sanitize or sidestep, again, many of the controversies just to deliver a safe nostalgia baiting portrayal of those golden years of his career. I mean, Bohemian Rhapsody did do this, but it at least attempted to also explore Freddie Mercury's AIDS diagnosis, even if it didn't do it very well. But yeah, that felt like it was a Queen film made by Brian May and Roger Taylor. But I feel like my concern about Michael, beyond all that, is, well, who's in charge of directing it? Because it's from Antoine Fuqua, who, I'll be honest, I think he has made a great film in the form of Training Day, but everything else, I think, in his back catalogue ranges from fine to just subpar. When you have things like his remake of The Guilty, the Equalizer trilogy with Denzel Washington, Shooter for instance. So yeah, I think I think this is very much going to be one where I am not surprised in the least of how it's going to turn out, but yeah, I think of the two, it's the one that won't be receiving my vote this month.
Probably not. I mean, again, with going back to who made it, obviously you have Antoine Fuqua, the director. John Logan is the screenwriter. Actually, slight correction. I believe it was Anthony McCartan who wrote
Yes,
Bohemian
sorry.
Rhapsody.
My mistake. I apologize.
No, it's all good. No, that's all absolutely fine. But yeah, but you're right. Graham King definitely produced both of those, and obviously he's doing Michael as well. It's interesting. I think that I'm not against a Michael Jackson movie in theory. I mean, honestly, it surprises me that it's taken this long to actually get a movie about his life out there, like officially
Yes,
sanctioned and all that.
yeah, especially considering that he himself has already made big screen appearances. If you like remember Moonwalker, for instance.
And his cameo in Men in Black 2, lest we forget.
Yes, I mean I've been trying to blank that out.
And there was also This Is It, the concert footage movie that was released months after his death, which I mean, it looked like it would have been a great concert, but yeah, I mean, there's so much you can say about how exploited his death was for the sake of entertainment, but that's a whole other conversation. But in general, in terms of Michael, I think everything I've seen of it, I mean, it doesn't look like it'll be like an awful film. It's not. I don't think it's going to end up like something like Glitter, for example.
Or
Wouldn't that be
from
some?
Justin to Kelly, if
Or
we're
from just
talking about
yeah.
yes, big vanity projects produced solely for the sake of the pop star fueling them.
Yeah, kind of like Moonwalker in that regard. But what I'm getting at is like I think Michael, it looks like it's very much going to fall into that category of music biopics that we've seen so many times over and when by the time Bohemian Rhapsody came out, it followed that formula, and everyone was just sick to death of it. Like I think the Whitney Houston biopic from a few years ago, also written by Anthony McCartan, I think also followed that same fate, and it very much looks like Michael is going to do that as well, unless because I don't know, I've heard conflicting things that. Apparently, there was talks about the Michael movie being split into two films, which would make sense, kind of like what they did with Wicked. But I mean, that made sense with Wicked because obviously it's two acts. But with Michael, encompassing the life of Michael Jackson into a 2 hour film, it's gonna, yeah, I mean, there's gonna be some stuff overlooked if there isn't like gonna be a part two later on. So I don't know how that's gonna turn out. But you know, I don't even know if that rumors are true or not. Like, but correct me if I'm wrong, those who are listening. But you know, I think it's gonna be it'll definitely make a lot of money, like you said, but I would be very shocked if it actually gets like high Rocket Man ratings, for example.
And there's also, I think it's important to note that this is a film that was originally meant to come out this time last year. It's been through multiple delays. It was meant to, it was shunted to October last year, and of course, and then shunted another 6 months. And there's been a few rumors that like large chunks of the third act did have to be reshot. So yeah, part of again, I think this is why I'm so skeptical as to how as to the kind of portrait that it's going to actually paint of its central figure, given just how contentious their legacy is nowadays when you have things like Leaving Neverland, for instance.
Yeah, no, I mean there are some things that are going to be very tricky to get out of the mind of viewers while they're watching it. And like again, this is what I'm saying. Like I think if you make a music biopic that's about a famous musician and it's just going to be just all the great things that they've done, then it can feel like one of those like reports you make as kids, like where you have to write a biography about your favorite superhero or
Yeah, it's like,
something.
and this happened, and then this thing happened, and then
Mhm.
this really bad thing happened, and then it was the drugs and the alcohol, and Dewey Cox has got to think about his whole life before he gets on stage.
Yeah, we should probably mention that Walk Hard pretty much has encapsulated everything that music biopics are nowadays, because
Yes,
that is an
yes, Walk
underrated
Hard the
film.
Dewey. Oh yes, Walk Hard the Dewey Cox story, the film which was made basically in response to the Johnny Cash biopic Walk the Line, which pretty much like set the template for all of these nostalgia baity music biopics, which just serve to like relive the hits of their artist, which like films like Michael, Bob Marley, One Love, Back to Black, The Whitney, I Want to Dance with Somebody. We are still very much living through this phase 2 decades later.
Yeah, and obviously, and goes even further back than that. You know, obviously, you have Ray the year before Walk the Line, and you also have way back when in the days of the Buddy Holly story. You know, yeah, I mean, music biopics. I mean, even biopics in general, they're nothing new. I mean, one of the most infamous ones from like the 1940s, and it's kind of seen as like an unintentional comedy now, as like one of the worst movies ever made, which is the Babe Ruth story,
Mm.
which I don't know if you've ever seen this film, but it's there's
I
some
mean, I haven't, but I know that it basically says that hey kids, Babe Ruth can cure cancer.
yeah, and a crippled child's illness. So if you do get a chance to see the Babe Ruth story, it's quite a laugh by today's standards. But what I'm saying is like biopics. I mean, they can either stick to a formula or they can actually do something that's unique and original. And I think those are the ones that I think tend to stick out more in terms of actual critical praise. And I mentioned this already, but I think the best example I can think of right now is Rocket Man.
Yes, and I very much agree with you on that front because I think what works so much about Rocket Man is I mean, yes, it Elton John is was very heavily involved with the production about it, and of course, it did have some crossover with Bohemian Rhapsody because Dexter Fletcher directed it, and he was brought on to finish Bohemian Rhapsody after Bryan Singer got himself fired. But I think what works so well about Rocket Man, I think what makes it, I think, one of the best examples of a music biopic in the last decade is one, it is not trying to be. I mean, it is very much utilizing the nostalgia of Elton John's music, but it is not trying to be a nostalgic celebration in and of itself. It's a very warts and all portrayal, like especially when it comes to tackling John's vices during that period of his career in the 1970s regarding the alcohol and the drugs and the sex addiction. But at the same time as well, it's also not a film that resorts to that typical structure of the music biopic where it is just like rattling off the facts and everything because it uses the songs out of sequence that essentially it structures itself like a musical to like bring that wicked comparison back into it. And I think that's what makes it such a standout example, both in the genre and as a film in its own right.
And to add to that as well, in terms of more recent films, I would say Better Man is another great example because, again,
Yes.
it's Robbie Williams, very similar to Rocket Man. It's a warts and all thing, doesn't shy away from all the drug abuse and everything, but he's doing he's cast basically not like a big name actor, but someone in a motion capture suit as an ape, as a chimpanzee. And that right there alone is like, I mean, yeah, sure, it's a gimmick, but it's a gimmick that works because I mean, for one, it's not pleasant seeing a CGI monkey like snorting a bunch of cocaine and like shooting up heroin and stuff like. But so that shit is actually really sad. But there is genuine passion and heart to Better Man as well, and there is in Rocket Man as well. Like again, both are films that have the artists themselves very heavily involved, and both in both cases could so easily have just been like a vanity project, like propaganda piece, but they really kind of made it. They made themselves vulnerable in the sense that, like, yeah, this is who I am, flaws and all, and I'm going to show you those flaws, and it's down to you as to whether or not you can accept those or not. But please don't, because there's some horrible stuff that we did in our day.
Yeah, I think what helps is the fact that I think both Elton John and Robbie Williams, they know how to send themselves up and take the piss out of themselves a little bit. You only have to look at Elton John's cameo that he had in Kingsman: The Golden Circle as proof of that. But on the note of Better Man, like, I still think, like, even though it's been like over a year since it came out, that is one of like the biggest cases I think I've seen of a film that I had absolutely no interest in whatsoever. Because, like, that's not to say that I don't like take that songs, but just have absolutely no feelings one way or the other. I had no feelings one way or the other to Robbie Williams as a public persona, because he was that era of like 90s boy bands was like before my time. But I was completely taken aback by how invested it was able to make me in Robbie Williams as a person, as a public personality. I think that the sequence of set to "She's the One," which goes through his tumultuous relationship with Nicole Appleton, that is absolutely heartbreaking. And yeah, like, very much like, again, a great use of that like musical structure, like, to, yeah, to enrich what would otherwise be a normally structured narrative.
You know, as someone who did grow up when Robbie Williams was massive as a solo star, like he was everywhere, man. Like, I mean, Rock DJ was always on the radio, and as all his other tracks as well. And that's another great sequence. That whole one shot
Mm.
thing set to Rock DJ and Better Man. It's sublime. But no, I think it's great because like those kind of films, like Better Man, Rocket Man, those ones that do are much edgier. They are pushing themselves to certain limits and the audience as well, and they are about things rather than just showing the person's life. And I think that's a trap that a lot of music biopics do fall into because a lot of them do have this very um I don't know how would you describe it? Like this very sanitized view of
Yeah, that was actually going to tie into something I wanted to mention, because, like, oh, it to this day, it still frustrates me the fact that Rocket Man only got one nomination at the Oscars, which it did win for like best original song. But the fact that after Bohemian Rhapsody's, quite frankly, undeserved dominance the previous year, the fact that it came up absolutely short when it was like a far more daring and challenging biopic. And the same thing with Better Man, which again was basically didn't get much traction in the awards season, despite being like prime Golden Globes bait, basically. I don't mean that as a bad thing, but yeah, just the fact that when you have films like these that are trying to push the envelope, but then you have something like Bohemian Rhapsody, or to some extent Elvis, that do end up, or Maestro, that end up becoming Oscar darlings. Like, sure, they may not come away with many wins, but they still get the nominations, and I think that's what makes their presence, I think, still a bit contentious to this day. I mean, you only have to look at Kate Hudson getting in nominated for Song Sung Blue in this year's race, and just how much uproar that caused, that proof that this is still happening.
Yeah, and I think there is a, tendency by the Academy to really favor, when it comes to music biopics anyway, tend to favor very safe, very formulaic versions, and I think it really boils down to the popularity of the musician themselves. I mean, Queen. I mean, who wouldn't want like the surviving members of Queen to like be in the Dolby Theatre during the Oscars? I mean, that's just prime telly right there, and
Yeah, like it is all just a big star circle jerk at the end of the day. I mean that with love.
yeah, no, no, absolutely. But like, I think, but in terms of like, yeah, like, the Queen, for example, I can completely understand because I mean, Queen is like a universally loved band. I mean, I love Queen. I would listen to all their track records right now if I had the time. And even like looking in the future, we've got like the four Beatles movies that are currently being filmed with. Yeah, that's a whole experimental thing by Sam Mendes. Four movies
Yeah,
all at once.
which I'm expecting is going to do absolute gangbusters when that eventually comes out.
Yeah, because it's the Beatles. I mean, you can't say music in without mentioning the Beatles. Like
Yeah,
they are that huge.
yeah, but I think where I stand on this is I honestly think that it is in some instances it's fine to have a traditional structure if the act isn't on the same level of popularity or as well known as people like the Beatles or Queen or Elvis, etc. That's not to say that Elvis didn't try to do its own thing, but I'm personally like not a big fan of Baz Luhrmann's style in most instances anyway. And I think for me, like as soon as I heard Doja Cat playing in a scene set in the 1950s, that was like the moment that was like, yep, this is a bad Baz Luhrmann film. I've been turned against this.
I mean, I'm not really into Baz Luhrmann myself either, but I was really shocked by how much I personally enjoyed Elvis. In fact, that's a biopic that I mean it is kind of doing something very formulaic, but also doing it in a very heavily stylized way. Going a direction like having Tom Hanks narrate it, doing all this so I'm surprised honestly that it got as much traction as it did with the Academy, even though it ended up winning nothing in the end. But I think more films like I think Elvis was a rarity in that I think it's more because Baz Luhrmann is such a respected figure. I mean, regardless of what you may think of his style or his movies, because I'm not the biggest fan of Moulin Rouge. I'm not even that into like his other stuff like The Great Gatsby or Romeo and Juliet. So I do consider Elvis to be one of his better films, to be perfectly honest. But in terms of just overall favorability, I mean, it's obvious that these movies, even though they don't always get great reviews because people say how predictable, formulaic they are, they obviously still have an audience. I mean, Bohemian Rhapsody went on to make, I think, close to, if not over, $1 billion.
Yeah, like it was the highest grossing biopic before Oppenheimer came
Mm.
out.
And I think Michael is pretty much bound to do the same, as will those Beatles movies. But like, so there's obviously still that audience, whether it's it's most likely just the nostalgia base at this point, especially for Michael. I mean, because I mean, I was listening to a bunch of Michael Jackson songs the other day, and you know what? They're still really good. These are great songs that he has on his. I mean, Thriller is fantastic. Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. All these tracks. I mean, it would be cool to hear them kind of like be played again in the mainstream, but again, I'm not predicting that it's going to be like anything different to what we've seen before, which is why I'm actually much more excited for California Schemin rather than
Yes,
I am for
same.
Michael.
Yeah, this has been one of my most anticipated films of the whole year, pretty much. And what I think has the biggest difference in terms of I think the way that the films have been marketed is I think like this isn't really focusing on the fact that it is a biopic. For those who don't know, this is based on the true story of Syllable and Brains, who were a Scottish hip hop act who, in the early 2000s, they pretended that they were actually from California, fake American accents at all. and all, and got themselves a touring contract with the likes of Eminem in the hip hop scene. And yeah, it's the fact that yeah, the marketing for this has very much played up the fact that it is a true story or a true lie in this case, which rather than your traditional biopic, which I think has just made it seem more interesting. Now, both of us haven't seen either of these films at this point, but I'm just interested to know the circumstances of. Obviously, there will be some artistic license present, but just how exactly was this allowed to happen and for so long at that? That is, I think, the angle that makes it appear as interesting as it seems like it's going to be.
Honestly, it reminds me of another really great movie that I saw a couple of years ago, really loved, which was Kneecap.
Yes, I was actually going to mention. I wanted to mention Kneecap because, again, I think even though that film is like follows a very like traditional structure, the fact that the band members are actually playing themselves in it and doing a really great job
Yeah,
at that,
they're
might I
genuinely
add.
great actors. Yeah, I'm usually quite iffy when someone plays themselves in a movie, like The Weekend in Hurry
Yeah,
Up
or
Tomorrow.
even further back when you had Clint Eastwood with his 1517 to Paris, where he thought, oh, I'm going to cast the actual people who stopped this attack to play themselves in it. And look how that turned out.
Yeah, yeah, and same with Hurry Up Tomorrow. But no, those members of Kneecap. I can't remember their names. I don't think I can even pronounce them. So, but they are great in that movie. I genuinely really loved that movie. That was one of my favorite films of that year.
Same.
But what I'm getting at with California Scheming is that it seems to going for that very a similar tone, like not quite as heavy in some regards, but it's definitely much more of a humanist tale rather than just like all the rags to riches stuff that you usually see in these kind of biopics.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, like you have even with ones that are milking nostalgia, they have to be able to have something that makes them stand out, which again is what I think is why Better Man and Rocket Man have gone down, I think, the best out of these kinds of films in recent memory. Because like even because I remember a couple years ago when Back to Black was coming out, the bus advertisements were everywhere. But it's a film which seems to have had absolutely no staying power in the time since, especially when compared to the legacy that Amy Winehouse as an artist herself has.
If anything, I think people remember the documentary Amy more than they do Back to Black, which
Yes, I literally said that in my review at the time. Just watch the documentary instead of going out to spend your money on it because it's just a lesser version of ground already covered.
yeah, because like Back to Black, I think that was another one where I think the family members of Amy Winehouse were involved, so there wasn't quite as negative a portrayal or as the documentary shows.
Mm.
So I think there is some iffiness around there as well. So, like I said,
Yeah,
I
but
think
then again, you also have something like A Complete Unknown, where even though like Bob Dylan didn't have all that much involvement with it, it's a fairly prickly portrayal of him as a person in terms of how he wanted to just be left to his own devices to pursue his artistic merit, his own artistic integrity, and the conflict that causes with people who actually want him to be a professional.
absolutely. I think Complete Unknown is also an example of the kind of biopics that I tend to like that actually don't focus on a person's entire life, but like just on a single episode. Like, I mean, A Complete Unknown, it covered his earlier days and eventually his move into electric music and things like that. Those are the kind of things that genuinely find interesting because I mean, it's not trying to do so much at once. It's just focusing much more on this one episode
Mm.
and how that kind of developed this person as an actual character and all that sort of stuff. So those kind of
Yeah, and like
biopics I really like.
yeah, and even though I wasn't a massive fan of a complete unknown personally, not even because of the portrayal of the artist or anything, more so just again, I find like traditionally structured stuff is not the sort of thing that grabs me. Yeah, I was at least like not as opposed to its nominations as when compared to something like Bohemian Rhapsody or Elvis. But you know, like with all of this, I wanted to also mention a film which is like an older example of a biopic that you wouldn't expect from the creative team behind it, which is Bird, directed by Clint Eastwood, which is about the life of Charlie Parker, which is, I think, one of the most un-Clint Eastwood films in terms of how it is very traditional, but it works surprisingly well. I think it's very underrated, and Forrest Whitaker is really great in it. Would definitely recommend checking that one out.
Excellent. And there's also What's Love Got to Do with It from the 90s as well, which was again the kind of biopic that I like, which is just about focused on a specific thing in a person's life. In this case, it was Tina Turner and her rather abusive marriage. And yeah, both Angela Bassett and Lawrence Fishburne are great in that
Hmm.
movie. It's a powerful as hell film. It's very disturbing in some places
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. I watched it for the first time a couple years ago. It completely knocked my socks off.
Yeah, so there are some great biopics out there. I mean, I know we're kind of like saying a lot of them are formulaic now, but that's more just like the more recent ones. But if you go back a ways, there are some genuinely great ones.
And I think the fact that we're mentioning like these two, like films which came out in like pre Walk the Line, I think there is like definitely a demarcation point between when people realized that they could use the artist nostalgia as the selling point. Because yeah, I think Ray and Walk the Line were very much the turning point on that front in that shift.
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting to see what will kind of which movie biopic will be the one to get back on track. You know, like who knows, it might even be those Beatles ones because honestly, I think the idea of doing four of them, each focused on a different guy, is like I mean, opens it up to more character development. It makes it more even, I think. So hopefully that'll come to something. I mean,
Yeah,
if
like
nothing.
I'm just interested to see how exactly cinemas handle the idea of releasing all four of them on the same day.
Yeah, that's going to be a very very interesting take for that one. That's not until 2028 though, so there's still time.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
but and in that time there is always the possibility that Michael could be a front runner at next year's Oscars, but let's not think about that too soon.
yeah, let's see how it actually fares with critics. I mean, yeah, Bohemian Rhapsody didn't do great, but like that didn't stop it. Right, so now that that's all out of the way, let's get to our usual end of the month roundup. So now we're looking back on March.
And for the first time, we're actually in agreement on both our choices for the best and worst of this month.
Well, you know what they say, good minds think alike, and we very much liked and disliked pretty much the same things. So, shall we talk about what we disliked first of all?
Yes, because I feel like if you've been on the internet for a good few minutes this month, you'll probably already know what our favorite film of the month is. But yeah, let's just get the worst film of this month out of the way, which I think was like quite unanimously, even with a few disappointments like The Bride or How to Make a Killing. Unanimously, we both decided the worst film of this month was Mother's Pride.
Yeah, I don't know what this was. This was a very weird sit. Like, I mean, because it's from the same makers of like Fisherman's Friends, Finding Your Feet, you know, those very like safe crowd pleaser types,
Yes,
but it was very lazily done.
yeah, it's one of those films that like we get one of these every year, which is like a comedy aimed squarely at the older demographics that like trying to follow off in the success of the best exotic marigold hotel and trying to get the grandmas and granddads to the cinema. Like I distinctly remember I saw this on a Thursday afternoon, and those those were the demographics primarily there, alongside people of my age being there to take them there.
Yeah, no, what, on my screening, I was the youngest one there by at least a decade or two.
I will not knock the people behind these films for having a formula and clearly knowing what works. But I think even more so than both of The Fisherman's Friends or Finding Your Feet, this was a film that really just annoyed me more than anything, because it is so blatantly trying to exploit the formula of feel good comedies, even going as far back as like the Full Monty. But also, it is trying to do things like, oh, we need to do a save the pub plot line, because didn't you guys hear? So many pubs in the UK are closing down every day, and also trying to do mental health plot lines as well. And it all just felt a bit insincere to me. I guess the way I describe it is, I guess, to quote Bo Burnham, it felt like the filmmakers were writing songs about riding tractors from the comfort of a private jet. They can sing in Mandarin, but I'd still know they're pandering.
I wasn't as annoyed as you, but that's because I didn't really feel any emotion during it. Like, really felt to me just like a collection of scenes, like that weren't didn't even like it wasn't even that they connected properly because some of them kind of did, but it's just a character, certain dialogue is said, a character is introduced, end of scene. There's like there's nothing really there, and I feel bad for a lot of the actors because I do think that a lot of them are quite good, but they're given such little to work with, and
Yeah,
because of that,
somehow it's a worse film starring Martin Clunes than Wuthering Heights was back in February.
yeah, because like when he is very animated in that movie, he's very alive, whereas here he's just boring. Like he delivers a very uninterested lead performance, and it really distracts you because like and it's really saying something when he gives more of an animated performance in Nativity 3 Dude Where's My Donkey.
Oh God! In fact, speaking of Nativity Free, Dude, Where's My Donkey? It's also a film which has some really terrible location doubling, because honestly, some of the most fun that I had watching it was trying to work out where in and about the southwest UK it was filmed in. At one point, John O'Davies, yes, the guy who was the actual body for Robbie Williams in Better Man, that film unironically makes better use of his talents. He goes into a guitar shop, which I immediately recognised from when I went to university in Bath. I was like, oh, that they use that part of the high street for it. And then it made me sad because I was thinking of all of the places I used to go in Bath that have since closed down since I left there as a student. And also, I think the most unintentionally funny moment of the year so far was when they use the Bristol Aquarium with its IMAX screen, the exterior of it, as part of London, but forget to take part of the signage for the aquarium down. And yeah, no, that was like the most unintentionally fun, entertaining moment of this entire year so far. That brought me more joy than Luke Treadaway as the mustache twirling, cartoony, terrible landlord that they're competing against.
My God, oh that character! It was just like
Oh, one of
it
the
was like
worst
every
performances of this year so far, I think.
I wouldn't even say that because again, the guy's just given nothing to do. It's just the most lazily written villain. Like every single word out of his mouth is designed to have like audiences like boo and hiss. Everything is just such a it's a terribly conceived
Yeah,
character.
you're almost waiting for the pantomime. Oh, no, he isn't.
Yeah, you know what? That is exactly what this movie feels like. It feels like a local community pantomime that somehow got broadcast into cinemas.
Yeah,
And
but you
it,
know what? At least the Kiefer Sutherland pantomime comedy from Christmas last year, Tinseltown, was better than this.
I mean, I didn't see that film, but I'll take your word for it.
But yeah, so I guess without further ado, it's time for our best of the month. And I think it's a foregone conclusion at this point, given it is the film of the moment.
It's Project Hail Mary, yes. Yeah, it's the film that has received unanimous critical acclaim. Audiences are showing up in droves even weeks later. Like it's had an amazing weekend drop in terms of how much it's earning at the box office every weekend. I mean, it is a bona fide crowd pleaser, and people are really responding well to it. I'm so glad because this is the first five-star film of the year for me that was released properly in 2026
And
because
same for me as well. And it thoroughly deserves all of the success that it has been getting. Like, even though I've only seen it once thus far, it's a film I just haven't been able to stop thinking about since I saw it. It is a film that delivers on everything that you could possibly want from a film, from a cinema experience, from everything pretty much.
the first time I saw this movie, I actually did see this movie at the BFI IMAX in London, Waterloo. So I did actually get to see it properly from the 70 millimeter projection. And can I just say, it is absolutely gorgeous. Like
I
if
can
you
imagine.
if you do happen to be in London and it's still showing in that format, I highly recommend seeing it because it is. I mean, I really enjoy that kind of old that 70 millimeter projection kind of aesthetic anyway. But there's something really beautiful in how it's utilized here. You know, just the cinematography by Greg Fraser is astonishing, so colorful and just gorgeous to look at, and
Yeah,
and it also delivers. Perhaps the best supporting character of the year, like to where I genuinely want to know if it's possible to get a puppet a supporting actor nomination.
same, because Rocky is one of, I think Rocky, when it comes to the end of the year and we're looking at like the best characters and moments from this year and everything, Rocky is going to definitely be amongst that crop. Amaze, 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 fist my bump. All of the great memes that have come out from him.
So much props to Ryan Gosling as well. Yeah, because he is a man who is as charm and a half that he can generate believable chemistry with an alien puppet,
Yeah,
it's incredible. Their chemistry is impeccable. Like, I mean, because also credit to the puppeteer James Ortiz as well, because he's not only like the lead puppeteer, but he also provides the voice over the computer for Rocky as well. And it's a great performance because I mean every single movement, every single word he says, whether it's in broken English or whatnot, it feels so alive and it feels genuine, and you feel
yeah.
so much compassion for this character, and by the end you're just like really rooting for him and Ryan Gosling to just kind of well not end up together, but like uh, be in each other's lives, shall we say, without getting into spoilers, just in case anyone's
Yeah,
still not seen it.
like yeah, it's a film that like very much it gave me hope for cinema, for just the future of this medium, and that's something that we really all need right now. And also, I want to just very also quickly shout out, as I think her performance is definitely going to get lost in the shuffle amidst the Gosling and Rocky discussion. Sandra Huller as well, who delivers such a beautiful and heartbreaking performance of "Sign of the Times" by Harry Styles on a karaoke session. Like one of my favorite scenes of the entire year, right there.
Yeah, I think Sandra Hulu is going to be quite around for a lot this year because she's got not just this, but also Digger in October, and I think she's also had a film debut to great acclaim at Berlin Film Festival, and I think there's going to be a lot more Sandra Hüller this year than just Project Hail Mary. And if you've seen her in Project Hail Mary, then you'll know that it's a very good thing.
Yeah, maybe this could be like what Sinners ended up being last year in terms of this big genre film from early in the year that ends up being that is such of a crowd pleaser and so defining to the year's cinematic identity that it sticks in voters' minds long enough to end up leading. Because I think it's going to be a two-horse race between this and Dune Part 3 at the in the technical category nominations at the
In the
Oscars next year.
in the technicals, absolutely. But I mean, it'd be awesome to see if this actually like goes the Sinners path and actually does make its way into multiple Oscar nominations. I would love to see it up for Best Picture, Best Actor would be great. I think if Phil Lord and Christopher Miller could get Best Director nominations, which I think is unlikely, quite honestly, but it'd be so cool if they did. But yeah, and like I said, but if they do manage to get slip in James Ortiz for supporting actor, that would be a stroke of genius. So
Mm.
yeah, so those are our picks for worst and best of March.
Yeah,
Are you all pretty much on the same level, or were there ones that really stuck out more for you, or ones that you disliked even more? So feel free to let us know in the comments wherever you may be
yeah.
listening or watching, and
Yeah,
we'd
though I
love to
would
hear your
also like to
thoughts.
shout out, I would also like to shout out what I think is the most overlooked film of this month. That being so, it. This is a film that came out in America all the way back in September. Is only has only just made its way over to the UK and got absolutely shafted because of it coming out in close proximity to the Easter half term period. That being Splitsville, which is I think which is cringe in the best kind of way, where you're watching these two man children absolutely ruin each other's lives. But yeah, I had a wonderful time with it, even if the process of actually getting to see it involved me having to jump through more hoops than March Madness.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It really did. They really kind of did a number on that one in terms of the UK distribution, which is a shame because yeah, I agree. Splitsville, it's a good time. It was a good 4 out of 5 for me. I enjoyed it very much. I thought it was very funny. I thought it was very smart as well. It's combining all this very heavy slapstick and screwball energy into this relationship. Not quite a rom-com, more of an anti-rom-com if anything, but it's very much an even playing field between the two lead guys, Carl Marvin and Michelangelo Covino. Covino also directed the film, and they both also wrote it. But also, you got great turns from Dakota Johnson and Adria Arjona as well. Both are very adept at the being charming and comedic as well. I mean, Adria Arjona, we've seen that on tenfold in Hitman as well.
Mm.
And yeah, I think Dakota Johnson is a very underutilized comedic talent. Like I know
Yeah,
she.
it's a great usage of her in
Mm,
it, I think. Having her play the straight man to these absolute idiots. And also shout out as well to Nicholas Braun, cousin Greg from Succession, who gets some really funny bits in it as well.
yeah, no, it's a great cast and it's a really good time. I really do hope more people get to see it when it comes on DVD or video on demand or things because it does deserve it as some kind of an audience because I think that people will really enjoy this.
Yeah, same thing for Dead Man's Wire as well from Gus Van Sant, which is a Sky original, so should hopefully be coming to Sky Cinema fairly soon. But again, like another overseen underlooked film because of just how quickly it ends up leaving cinemas, with just again being so close to that half term period. But like with great turns from like Bill Skarsgård, Dacre Montgomery, and Coleman Domingo as well, proving that he could play basically any kind of presenting role and still win me over with his incredible voice.
Oh yeah, Coleman Domingo. Yeah, you put Coleman Domingo in anything, and it gains an immediate star rating from me. That dude is just charismatic as hell. But no,
Yeah,
I really enjoyed Dead Man's Wire as well. This is Gus Van Sant, and it's probably his best film I think since Milk back in 2008. Because I know he's had a bit of a dry period in between. Then some movies of his haven't done quite as well, like Sea of Trees, bombed like hell. But no, this is him back to like his absolute peak, and I think it's a very It's a very stylized thing. It does genuinely feel like something that could have come from the days of like The French Connection or Dog Day Afternoon, which is appropriate because Al Pacino's also in Dead Man's Wire.
Yeah, it's what my one of my friends would call peak dad cinema. I mean that and meant as a compliment.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know if I'd go so far as to say it's dad cinema, but I get what you mean in that regards.
Yeah,
It's
I
very,
mean in terms of it being like a throwback to those sorts of 1970s 70s thrillers, but not in a like cloying sort of way. It really does feel like it could fit in amongst the crop of that era.
yeah, no, I can see that. Yeah, but they definitely did a really good job of capturing that 70s aesthetic, not just in the soundtrack, but just in the way that it's shot, the grainy cinematography and just the naturalism among the actors. And it definitely felt like a genuine like 70s piece, whereas with that just happens to have like modern actors like Bill Skarsgård and Dacre Montgomery and but no, I really enjoyed that as well. So, yeah. So while we praise the hell out of Project Hail Mary, don't forget to check out Splitsville and Dead Man's Wire as and when they finally come to home video. Or on the off chance that there is like a repeat cinema screening, see it that way because it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, definitely. And again, on the note of Project Hail Mary, in terms of films which have like very much already received their dues, I did really love Pixar's Hoppers as well, which I think was one of their best films in ever. But again, I think everyone who's seen Hoppers at this point knows that it's great, so you don't need us to like give it any more endorsement.
Yeah, I mean, we both really enjoyed it, and you probably enjoyed it as well because it's been out for like a month by this point. So if you
Mm.
haven't seen it, what are you doing?
Now we look on the horizon to April 2026. And, this month, I think, in comparison to everything that's come before, it's not as busy, but I think there's a better balance in terms of A, how many films are out each week, and B, in terms of your blockbusters and your indies. So yeah, I'd say on the blockbuster front, Jack, what I know we've already talked about Michael and California Schemin, but what else is there to look forward to?
Yeah, there's definitely, like I said, we have Bohemian Rhapsody on the way, and that's at the end of the month on the 22nd. By the time of recording, we also have the Super Mario Galaxy movie currently breaking records in cinemas, and let's just say it's not going to be on either of our best or worst of lists on next month's episode.
Yes, but it is not as bad as some critics have been saying, like that it is worse than AI or the 0 out of 5 that came from the Times from Kevin Maher. Like people need choose your battles wisely. Like for Illumination, it is not even in the bottom 5 of the worst things they've made. It is not on the level of the Lorax or Hop or even any of the later Despicable Me or Minion sequels.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, as a Mario fan, I had fun. It's definitely overstaffed. There's so much going on. It doesn't have that simplicity that you usually get with Mario, so it kind of does falls flat in that regard. But I did have a good enough time, so I think that's about enough. But like I said, it won't be on either of our best or worst lists next month. But I think in terms of blockbusters, I think the only other one that's really worth mentioning is Lee Cronin's The Mummy. Now, I'm very intrigued by this because obviously Lee Cronin had a great time a couple of years ago with his Evil Dead Rise, which obviously proved him to be such a success to the point where his name is before the actual title of the film, The Mummy. Which this is not like Mummy's Past. This isn't like a Brendan Fraser action vehicle, nor is it even a Tom Cruise Dark Universe launch pad. It's much more of a grounded horror in the same vein as The Invisible Man from a few years ago. Like this is much more of a creepy supernatural horror, which I think is an interesting way to go about it. It'll be interesting to see how Lee Cronin pulls it off, but yeah, in terms of blockbusters, I think those are like the big ones. But
Yes, but there's also the drama, which is also just been released. I know that like straddles the line, but considering the star power of Robert Pattinson and Zendaya that has like buoyed it, yeah. Again, that having seen it, I think there is a, depending on how the rest of this month goes, it could very well end up being my film of the month.
It could well, but there's also other ones that could surprise. You know, there's You, Me, and Tuscany, which is a new rom-com with Harley Bailey and Regé Jean Page of Bridgerton
Mm.
fame. That's coming out, as is Undertone, the creepy horror film from A24 that's finally coming to UK cinemas as well. The Stranger, I also want to highlight as well. This is the latest film from Francois Ozon. Now, I actually did get to see an advanced screening of this, and I was very impressed by it. And my review, which will be published a few days after this podcast comes out, I actually tend to trying to look at it from more of a neurodivergent perspective. So I thought that was kind of an interesting angle to go from, and I think I managed to come away with some interesting results. So you
Yeah,
can.
and also, didn't you get featured on a poster
I
recently for one
did.
of your reviews?
I did. Film Feeder is on a poster, more specifically, the UK quad poster for Exit 8, which is the new Japanese video game adaptation. It's distributed over here by Vertigo Releasing, but it's also done by Neon in the States. But this is, so I caught this at the London Film Festival last year. And it's a very creepy film. So it's basically, for those who don't know, Exit 8 is basically like an online game where basically you have to go through this endless repetitive maze of like the same underground subway station, and you have to like spot anomalies, like maybe someone's walking weird, or maybe there's some weird things on posters or something, and if you miss it, or if there is something goes wrong, then you always end up back at the very beginning. And it's really creepily done. Like, it's very well shot. There's a lot of long takes, and the overall vibe is just really chilling. Like, it is genuinely quite a. I wouldn't say it's like a truly like horrifying experience, but it is definitely unsettling. And so, but yeah, that my 4-star review of it, you know, obviously got some attention because now Vertigo Releasing have put it on the poster, which is actually really cool. Like, just seeing
Yeah.
4 stars dash film feeder, it's just like, wow, made it, Ma, top of the world.
Oh, and I mean, that certainly like raised my interest in seeing it, especially because I feel like I've started to get a bit bored in terms of like the A24 sorts of horror. Like, I'm not particularly feeling Undertone from any of the marketing I've seen of it. So yeah, it's very much on my radar. And there's also plenty going on in terms of the indie scene this month. We have Jim Jarmusch returning with his first film in over half a decade, with the anthology Father, Mother, Sister, Brother, which also played at London Film Festival this past year, as did something that I got to see while I was there, Rose of Nevada, which is the new film from Mark Jenkin, the third part of his trilogy of Cornish horror after Bait and Ennish Main, which is also his starriest project to date, with George McKay and Callum Turner leading it. So that's definitely one worth checking out if you like horror that is a bit trippy, a bit of a with a bit of a mystery box element to it. But you've also got Rebuilding, starring Josh O'Connor, which is also the first project for Amy Madigan since her Oscar win for Weapons. So yeah, that's had a lot more profile for it. Mother Mary, from A24, with directed by David Lowery of The Old Man and the Gun and The Green Knight, starring Anne Hathaway and Michaela Cole, with original music done by Charlie XCX, who is having her moment, the moment even. Kiss of the Spider Woman's finally getting released over here. That is Bill Condon's adaptation of the stage musical version of the 1985 film starring William Hurt. But I think out of everything that is lined up this month, I think that we haven't already mentioned, I think the one I'm looking forward to the most is Glen Rotham, which is the directorial debut of Brian Cox, starring him alongside Alan Alan Cumming, which just looks like it's going to be like a really lovely, like fun little comedy.
Yeah, no, I think that one looks charming. I mean, Brian Cox is a very obviously a very outspoken person in terms of like certain acting methods and personalities. But I do enjoy his stuff. Obviously, I think he's a great actor. You know, he's fantastic on Succession and everything. So it'd be really interesting to see what he does behind the camera as well. But yeah, you're right. Kiss of the Spider Woman, that is an interesting one because that was only very recently added to the schedule. And yeah, because I know it kind of had a bit of a strong reaction at last year's Sundance, but then it just kind of became muted and it ended up being a box office bomb, so it didn't really go anywhere. But I have been really interested to see it. Like I didn't see the original film, but I know a fair bit about it. But I know that this one kind of combines that kind of seedy like 80s Argentinian political thriller mixed with like the classic old age Hollywood musical. And I actually think that looks quite look, it'll be a nice little treat, even though it doesn't seem like it'll get much screens because, you know, again, it bombed in the US. So hopefully I do get to see it because it actually does look quite good. But aside from that, yeah, I think that's pretty much this episode all wrapped up in a nice little bow. So yeah, like I said, let us know your thoughts. What are your favorite music biopics or just biopics in general? And let us know what films you're looking forward to seeing in April. And we will be back this time next month. Again, I don't know what we'll be talking about, but I'm sure it will be quite another fascinating episode and also a great time conversation to be had with you, Joe. Like I said, I know I say this at the end of every episode, but I'm really excited that you're here as my co-host so we can get to talk about all these topics and all these things. It's just, and hopefully it's good for the listeners at home as well. So, but I really enjoyed doing this with you and I hope to do it a hell of a lot more in the future.
Oh, same with you, man. And we're going to be really getting into the exciting stuff as the summer blockbuster season is almost upon us. Next month we get The Mandalorian and Grogu, so we might end up doing something Star Wars themed. Get that obligatory topic off, checked off the list. Who knows? But yeah, very much looking forward to being back with you once again this time next month.
Well, whatever it is we talk about, it will be certainly another good time at the movies. So, other than that, thank you all so much for listening or watching if you're on YouTube, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Take care.
Hey, you've made it to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for sticking around. Please like and subscribe on whichever platform you may be listening on. Make sure that you're following Film Feeder on all our social media channels, the links and handles to which are all listed in the episode description. And do consider supporting Film Feeder either on our Patreon or Ko-fi pages, the links to which are also in the description, where even the smallest donation, either monthly or as a one-off, will be an enormous contribution towards helping a hard-working creative like myself. Finally, don't forget to visit the Film Feeder website at filmfeeder.co.uk, where I post regular written reviews and weekly movie menus that round up all the latest movies coming to cinemas, streaming and on demand here in the UK. Until next time, I'm Jack Martin, your film chef extraordinaire, whetting your appetite for film each and every month. Bye for now.